Hello, and welcome to Badaboom. On this episode, we review Season 2 of Invincible. After a frustrating long hiatus and a mid season break, the Invincible season finale delivers on the action and emotion. Listen in as we discuss our thoughts and break down the season and where we think the series is headed. Listen in, and Badaboom! Hey guys, welcome to Badaboom. Today is the last day for a long time we're going to be getting any Invincible. And we're here to talk about this crazy season finale and what has happened this entire season with Invincible. It's been a crazy ride compared to season one. Chris, what did you think of this last episode and the season as a whole?
Yeah, I would say, this episode, I thought you were stronger is a lot more emotional than the season one finale. I would say the season one finale was, yes, it had emotions, but it was also like this very big and epic fight between Omni-Man and Invincible, and that fight lasted basically the whole episode. Whereas this fight where you have Angstrom Levy is much more sort of psychological, emotional, and it's also sort of like Mark sort of facing what he can become, what's possible. And the season has been a little uneven in terms of like its quality because I think also the release structure definitely hurt it in terms of like how you receive it. There's parts of the season like there's a piece in this where they're following up on something that happened earlier in the season about an Egyptian tomb, and I was like, when did that happen? I totally forgot that.
Yeah.
So just because it feels like season two, because of the break, it almost feels like some of the stuff that happened literally happened so long ago. And by the end of it, I'm glad we're sort of talking now after a few hours after I watched it, because at first I was like, I don't know. And then the more I thought about it and sort of pieced together like the entire season, I was like, well, it is like a really good emotional arc because at first it seems like Mark has adjusted pretty well considering what happened at the end of season one, and he's trying to be his own hero and not be his father. And by the end of it, where, spoilers, he does kill Angstrom Levy and he's left in a place and he also sees a glimpse into what happens into the future. He's kind of like, hey, like, I think I might be my dad. And, he sort of commits himself to being a hero full time at the end to sort of get stronger and be in a better position to protect his mom, to protect his brother, to protect his family in the world. So, sort of once I pieced all that together, I was like, it was a really good season, and it is a little unfair to hold it to that high standard that the first season set it up for.
Yeah, I I feel like you can hold it to the first season, and I think that is fair to do so. Mostly, in my opinion, because when I watched season one, there was no mid-season break. I watched it all the way through. Like I watched like 4 episodes in one day, and like loved it. If you're watching this one like as it's coming out, like it does feel a little bit disjointed at times where the story doesn't flow, or like you said, like that thing happened all the way in episode one, and that was like I don't know, like 6, 7 months ago. So I think the way they released it didn't allow, I think, the story to flow and connect as well as it should have. But I do think the final episode really highlighted a lot of the things that we've been kind of seeing with Mark the entire time of, not being his dad, but also at the same time being his own person. And now he's kind of trying to figure out, how do I take the parts of me that may be like my dad, but make sure I'm not using them in a way that my dad used them, and making sure he's always there to protect his family. And I think there's a little bit of comfort that he could take in it, in the fact that he killed Engstrom, because when the future guardians come and get him, they of course send him back to his own dimension, which that whole guardian team think that's the right thing to do. But also, like they say, if they hadn't come and got him, their version of him that was left there went crazy, and they said like you wouldn't like what you would have become. So I think like he's already on a path to being a better version of himself, but he just doesn't realize it yet. But knows there's a lot of work in the on the path ahead of him.
It's interesting too because as Angstrom as a villain, it's interesting because he has insight into sort of the multiverse. In most universes, Mark does become the ultimate bad guy. So he had a lot of work to do to kind of become, a hero in this particular universe. And I think it does a good job of that. But like you said, sort of like in the case of Angstrom, sort of what happened and sort of that peek into the other dimensions was so long ago, you kind of forget like why is he mad again? And they have to do those flashbacks and stuff like that when he's in the house. And at first, Angstrom doesn't feel like a really threatening villain because at first he's just throwing these portals. But once he sort of, he breaks Debbie, Mark's mom's arm, and he sort of reveals like, "Hey, I've only been sending you these dimensions to weaken you." That's when things pick up and sort of the episode really like kicks into high gear. And I really like that. And I also like some of the fun stuff that they put in to sort of add a little levity. So you have that Spider-Man universe where
Yeah.
it's not Spider-Man, which was funny because it's that character, if you listen, is voiced by Josh Keaton, who played Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man animated show. And people have been speculating the whole time, like, "Hey, is he playing Spider-Man in this?" Which, I mean, he kind of is. We also get a look at Batman, Batman's cape, which is really cool. So there's like fun moments like that in it, and obviously, Alan the alien comes in, but there is a little bit of like unevenness because for example, the Allen piece is really one sort of like big problem I think the show has is like it relies so heavily on that post-credit scene for so much. I think like Alan's entire story has been told in like post-credit scenes. which um which I mean if you think about it in a comic book would be like a backup, like a 8 to 10 page, like backup story. But it does become frustrating because even though the season's only 8 episodes, it had so many B and C plots that a lot of them didn't come to a satisfactory like conclusion. And you wonder like, hey, like does this release schedule or this episode length allow for them to sort of like really tell a full story in 8 episodes. I think it did a good job of sort of again that emotional arc of Mark, but I do think they might have stuffed too much in terms of like the story because there's so much that's in here that you almost forget like hey when the immortal gets to see Kate, that happens. Alan
Yeah.
saying he's gonna break out Nolan, like all these things kind of happen. And like yes, like Mark's sort of story is sort of in a good spot, but like I'm like, wait, like the Martian, that's going on. Like there's so many other things that are going on in the background, and I know sort of they're gonna follow up on it at some point. But it just seems like there's too many through lines, and for us, even sort of discussing it, I'm like, "Oh, like, where is season 3 gonna go?" And it's like, well, there's, like, about 1,000 different places that it can go, so I'd say that is something that the show definitely needs to work on, and it doesn't help that, hey, like, you have to wait 2 years to see what what these stories will be because by the end like by the time you get there naturally like you've built up these stories in your head and you're like I need to see the natural conclusion of this. And if you don't it becomes upsetting, and then on top of that if you throw in a mid-season break you definitely disrupt the structure of that. So and I feel that's definitely affected the way I've felt about Invincible season 2. I am gonna try to watch it all in one sitting and see if it flows better than I initially thought, but that's where I'm at.
I think Amazon does this mid-season break stuff to try and get you to pay for Prime longer, which in reality, I feel like people are just going to cancel it. Maybe people will hold on to it, or people that are watching it, they already have Prime, so they're not like we're spending extra money to see this.
What was fucked up about this particular break was before they went on break, it was before they had ads. And then after, that's
Yeah,
when they kicked in the ad system. So it kind of like, as much as you kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, hey, like maybe they needed this break, it is a little weird that that sort of like shift happened as soon, like literally they came back almost like immediately after that, after they changed that structure. And it kind of feels like, hey, like now we have something to make you pay for the ad-free option, or we have something good to run ads on. So that was, I think that like frustrated a lot of people. So I mean, that hasn't, obviously, you know, you can't sort of blame the creators and the writers of the show for that, but it does affect the way you feel about it.
yeah. But I would say at the same time, like hopefully these ads make it easier to not have to do a mid-season break in the future, and hopefully we can get the content sooner too. But the season as a whole, like, would have flowed a lot better if there was no mid-season break. If Amazon's really that concerned about making money, put an ad at at the end of the show for, hey, buy these comic books, because then they can make more money on the same content that they already have. But I think they could have done a better job with delivery. Season three, I think, will be a better job too. Like for Mark, we're at a point where he's got some direction on where he wants to go and where he feels like he needs to be. He's not trying to juggle college and being a hero. He's committed to just being a hero, and it sounds like he's going to be trying to eventually ask Eve out. And they're in the superhero business together, so they don't have to juggle things to juggle aspects of their life to be together. I think season three will be a little bit more cohesive, and we'll probably focus on a lot of things outside of Mark Grayson, so that they can continue to build the world for a bit and then pull him in after maybe like an episode or two where he hasn't really played a large part in it. But what do you guys think? What were your thoughts on season two of Invincible? Where do you think season three is going to go? Do you want a mid-season break for season three? Let us know in the comments. And with that, bada boom.
Bada boom. Thank you for listening to the Badaboom podcast. Keep the conversation going on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Get in the comments on our YouTube channel and let us know what you'd like to hear next. And please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen.